Next to me are two of the greatest American track cars ever made, the Shelby GT500 and the Camaro ZL1 1LE. Both of them have incredibly sticky tires, supercharged V8s, and can lap the track faster than some of your favorite Italian supercars. So which one's better? Today, we're gonna find out exactly that. The ZL1 1LE is the most powerful, most track-oriented version of the Camaro, and the statistics are pretty ridiculous. Under the hood of this thing is a 6.2-liter supercharged V8, making 650 horsepower and 650 pound-feet of torque. Power is sent just to the rear wheels through either a 6-speed manual, yes, that's right, you can get the 1LE with a manual transmission, or a 10-speed automatic. In fact, when this car originally was produced, it only came with a manual, which is pretty awesome. A perfect launch will result in a 0 to 60 time of 3.5 seconds. Now this is the GT500, the ultimate performance version of the Mustang, and the statistics are out of this world. 5.2-liter supercharged V8, making 760 horsepower and 625 pound-feet of torque. All the power is sent to the rear wheels through a 7-speed dual-clutch transmission, which is pretty cool considering the price point of both of these cars is under $80,000. Now, one of my biggest gripes with the GT500 is the fact it doesn't have a manual option. Yes, I get it, the automatic is faster, but this thing with a 6-speed manual would be ridiculous. 0 to 60 in the GT500 happens in 3.4 seconds. Let's see what these things sound like. How about a little rev battle? Now, neither of these cars is a straight line drag car. They just happen to be incredibly quick in a straight line. But let's talk about where their performance truly shines at the racetrack. If we take a look at the Ferrari 488 GTV's track time at Virginia International Raceway, it's 2 minutes and 45.1 seconds. The ZL1 1LE, 2 minutes and 45 seconds flat. Now, a 50th of a second faster than this is the new Lamborghini Huracan Evo. And 0.4 seconds faster than that is the Shelby GT500. That is unbelievable performance for the money when you think about the fact that the 488 or the Huracan is 5 times the price of either of these. Now, the ZL1 was already a ridiculously quick car, but when we add in the 1LE package, things get taken up a notch. The 1LE is down 60 pounds from the standard ZL1. That's thanks to lighter wheels, lighter suspension. We even have thinner glass in the back, which means the exhaust is louder inside the cabin, but also to save a little bit of weight. It's also got a ridiculous front end. Check out the dive planes, the massive front splitter. This is one of the most aggressive cars on the road, and it almost makes the GT500 look like a basic car, and this is already really, really aggressive. Of course, we also get a massive wing for large amounts of downforce. All right, let's hop in, shall we? Now, both the cars' interiors are essentially just a spruced up version of their entry-level muscle cars, the Camaro and the GT500. But the ZL1 1LE feels a lot higher quality in here. Interestingly enough, both the cars have upgraded Recaro bucket seats. The Ford seats feel like they hold you a bit better in place. These ones off the bat feel a little bit more comfortable. Nice mix of Alcantara throughout the interior here, and everything comes together just with a higher quality feel to it, particularly when you look at the climate control gauges. Everything's got a nice finish to it. We've even got cooled seats. It's a super hot day out. The Mustang doesn't have cooled seats. Now, moving on to the infotainment, the graphics are night and day difference between the ZL1 and the GT500. This actually looks nice, whereas the GT500 looks acceptable for a car from the early 2000s. Now, moving to the instrument cluster, the ZL1 has a more analog setup. We've got an analog tachometer and speedo, a little bit of digital information in the center, but it is a pretty traditional tachometer. The GT500 wins, in my opinion. It's digital, it's customizable, and particularly in track mode with that horizontal layout, it looks really, really cool. Both of them have awesome steering wheels. Both the paddles feel nice to the touch. This car, however, even has some ambient lighting. But what's it actually like to drive? Let's get it out on the road. Find out. But before we continue, I want to give a special shout out to the sponsor of today's video, Masterworks. As someone who has an appreciation for art and investing, Masterworks gets me unbelievably excited. The company allows you to invest in the same art collections billionaires own, only for a fraction of the price they had to pay to buy it.
Imagine owning a part of a Monet or a Banksy. Masterworks knows what they're doing. Since 2017, they've sold 3 paintings, each returning over 30% IRR to investors. In fact, contemporary art prices have outperformed the S&P 500's total gains by 164% over the last 26 years. Getting started with Masterworks is super easy and just takes a few clicks. Just visit their website, create an account, and diversify your portfolio with one of the most stable assets out there. They even have a secondary market where you can sell your shares before the collector actually sells the artwork. How cool is that? Look at the returns on these Basquiat paintings. This is insane. Now, there's currently a wait list, but using my code by clicking the link in the description below, you can cut the wait list and start investing today. All right, here we go. 0 to 60 in the new ZL1 1LE. Off we go. Whoa! Oh man, this thing is fast. Listen to that noise. Right off the bat, a lot more supercharger noise entering the cabin than the GT500. You almost don't even hear the supercharger whine in the Shelby, which to me is a bit of a disappointment. I wish you could hear that supercharger. Now, don't get me wrong, I do actually think the GT500 sounds better from the factory than this car, and it's certainly a lot louder. But I do love that nice little whine that you get on the Camaro. You'll also notice right off the bat how much stiffer the suspension is on the ZL1 1LE. The normal ZL1 comes with MagneRide suspension. It's adjustable and it can soak up bumps easily, but also ride firm enough to be good on the track. This though, they've gone with a Multimatic coilover setup similar to that on the Ford GT, which is better on the track, but not as good on the road. So if you wanted a car to daily drive, but also be really good on the track, the GT500 has the advantage there because it has the MagneRide. It rides smoother in comfort mode, and then you put the car into track mode, and then you get that really stiff lack of body roll. Steering feel is great in this car. Not a ton of communication, but it's nice and direct, and the front end grip is actually really surprising. This car feels like it wants to step out a little bit more too than the GT500, which I think is interesting. Perhaps the traction control, we're in track mode right now, is just a little bit more lenient in this car than the Shelby, because that car has even more power. So if you turn that off, full traction off, it can spin like a top. But this car is really confidence inspiring. Tons of grip at the limit. It's predictable, it's easy to control, and it doesn't feel like it has too much horsepower. Yes, it's got 650 and 650 pound-feet of torque, which is a ton, but it feels manageable in this car. Now, I will say, backing up here, the visibility in the ZL1 is horrendous. A lot worse than the GT500, particularly looking over your shoulders, but not really that big of a deal. Seats, I wish they had a little bit more support, but what I do love about these seats is the fact that despite they're the track buckets, they still have electronic controls on them, whereas the GT500s are completely manual, which, you know, for not a full-fledged track car, you can drive it around and actually use it as a daily driver. I do wish they still had the electronic controls. And the fact that you can get cooled seats in this on the track seats is really awesome. You also get a lot more backfires when you let off the gas in this car compared to the Mustang. But overall, in track mode, unbelievably firm, no body roll whatsoever. It feels a little bit more squirrely and playful than the GT500, which could be a positive or a negative. It definitely takes more focus to drive this car and not crash it than the GT500. The traction control on the Shelby makes it a more manageable car for a typical driver than this. Sound-wise, I think the GT500 wins. Looks-wise, I'm gonna have to go with the Camaro. Both inside and out, this car is more badass than the GT500, and the GT500 is a good-looking car. So with that, I'm gonna hop into the GT500 to give you a little comparison. in the GT500 now. You can definitely feel that extra power over the ZL1 1LE. You feel like you sit higher in the Shelby versus the ZL1, where you're kind of lower down in this fighter jet style cockpit. I kind of prefer the seating position of the GT500 because the visibility is significantly better, both out the front windshield and around your body as well. It's like night and day comparison when you're looking over your shoulder. The GT500 also feels a lot more manageable in the corners. It just has this level of confidence that doesn't really make any sense for a 760 horsepower rear wheel drive car, but it allows you to send it through corners with more power than you think you should and still maintain grip. Transmission-wise, it's night and day. The 7-speed double clutch in the GT500 is significantly better than the 10-speed in the Camaro. Maybe the shift times are similar, but the actual feeling of the shift, it's a lot more instantaneous when you pull the paddle and when the actual shift occurs in the GT500 as compared to the Camaro. Aesthetics-wise, the ZL1 wins. It's got a cooler looking exterior and the interior feels a lot more premium. It's funny because the ZL1 is a cheaper car, but it feels higher end than the GT500. But the driving experience, the GT500 just has it beat, plain and simple. It's faster, the steering feels better, the power feels more manageable, the car corners better, and it's a more usable car on a daily basis because you can put it into normal mode and it doesn't ride like a bag of bricks. The suspension setup is amazing for the track on the ZL1 1LE, but for every environment that's not a racetrack, it's just not that ideal. Even on canyon roads, it's just a little bit too bumpy, whereas the Shelby is just perfect. Well guys, there you have it. If I had to choose just one, I would pick the GT500 over the ZL1 1LE. However, if you want a manual car, there's only one option. And I do think that is the special little trick up its sleeve that the Camaro has over this car. Despite it being down on power, despite the handling not feeling quite as crisp, if you really want a manual transmission vehicle, you gotta go with the Camaro. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Like always, please browse the channel and subscribe. Special thanks to Rez Vlogs for letting me review his ZL1 1LE. Got a link to his TikTok in the description below. All right, guys, see you next video.